Hello.
Hello. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you as well.
Did you have a nice weekend?
Yeah, it was a good one.
Good. Good.
Started realizing the number of boxes that we have to fill to relocate. So I'm surrounded by boxes.
Oh yeah, you can see it slowly blurring up box wall. When you're like, it's all behind you, it's just boxes. But now you're nearly packed.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a quiet one today because it is a US and Canadian holiday.
Yeah.
So Myra is going to have a pretty quiet day. Hey, Ahmad.
Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Hi, Vladimir.
Hello.
Hey. So, there we go. Hey, Myra.
Hi, Matt.
So, might be all of us. I'm not sure if Ruben's going to be around today, but anyway, as I say, Myra, you're going to have a super quiet day today because it's US and Canadian holiday. So, a very small group of you around for your day. But welcome everyone. This is the 4th of September and it's our delivery weekly, EMEA Americas. We have a few people out on holiday. Michele is off sick at the moment, so he hopefully will be back tomorrow. If you need anything in the meantime, just give me a ping. I have listed on here an async announcement. Please do take a look closely at that Slack message. The key thing to take care with in this one is that Navan has been updated, but the handbook has not yet been updated. So if you are planning to do anything that will result in expenses, please do just double check on that Google sheet and give me a shout if you need to clarify anything, because in the transition period, it's a bit of a pain that you'll get stuff rejected in Navan that you may not see in the handbook. Cool. Do we have any suggestions for new things that should be added into the release docs changelog? Nope. Okay. Good. And discussions. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss? If not, I actually have a question. Ahmad, you may be best to know about, but on our current charts bump process, am I right in thinking we have a manual process? Wait, sorry. The MR gets automatically created and we manually merge it every Monday to apply the latest chart bumps. But it is possible for that process, it is possible for other people to run that in between. Is that right? Like, am I remembering that correctly, that we put that process in place so that we didn't go weeks and weeks without applying all the changes? But it isn't necessarily that like you have to wait for Monday for us to actually merge that MR.
That's true. We can run the pipelines during the week. It's okay, but usually it runs over the weekend. And then Graham usually takes care of this. If he's away, I or Scarbeck take care of it. So yeah, this is the process right now. It's manual. We prefer it to be like this, to be still manual, so we can basically assess actually what's going on. Because we review what happens in the charts. Sometimes there's something we don't want, like we want to actually adapt it because the charts are like just part of it. There is also the other part that we configure these charts to our own setup.
Oh, I see. So we're basically checking that the new changes coming in look sensible, but also that we haven't lost any of our delivery specific stuff. I get it. Okay, cool. Okay. And would it be, I can ping you on this issue, but would it be reasonable for us to say to another team that they can do all the stuff and just ping us new, like, do they need to ping new MRs to delivery specifically, or is it infra specifically, or like, can another team basically trigger this pipeline?
Currently, like I think it's timed to be every weekend, but I think other teams could also like trigger it. It's okay. The thing is, like if you are talking about responsibility, we can also delegate this to someone else. But right now it's just like on us.
It's just on us. Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I think I can't remember who it was. Was it you, Ahmad? Somebody got massively stung by us having not run this pipeline for like 6 weeks when we tried to do some basic maintenance. And we put in the weekly process, so we didn't go too far.
I don't recall actually this. Maybe someone
It
else.
might not have been. I can't remember if it was you or not. Somebody got really badly hit, so we put a process in. Okay, cool. I will ping you on an issue, Ahmad, because we have a team who is working on something that is in the charts, and they are saying they would like more frequent deployments versus weekly. So that would be a good one for me to get a proper answer from you on like how they could actually trigger this more frequently.
Sure.
Oh, and then I guess a follow-up question on that one is, so not everybody is in the charts rollout process, right? So what do we need to do so that we can have like Dat, Vladimir, like Jenny, and like have everybody inside delivery? Kind of how do we onboard people into this charts rollout process?
It's easy. I think we just like assign the MRs to them. Because like currently only Graham, me, and Skarbag get this MRs bump chart MRs, so we can assign them to these MRs as well, and they just need to go through like reviewing it. And yeah, for the whole thing, maybe you can do like a recording or something session, like some sort of session to actually show what's happening there.
Oh, that would be super helpful. Yeah, I'd like to see what needs to be checked and what to watch for. Yeah, that would be really helpful. Cool. Okay. Do we, in terms of the MRs being assigned, is that manual? Is that something that Graham manually does?
No, I don't actually remember how this get created. I think there is a bot creates the MRs and then assign the 3 of us to them.
Okay, cool. Let me spin up an issue then, and see if we can get that together, so we can get the bot or whoever it is, get the MRs assigned to every SRE, and then plan a kind of how do we onboard everybody onto this so that we can share the workload. Because if we are saying to other teams that they can trigger this more frequently, we may find we get like 1 a day or something along those lines.
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Does
the chart change so often to need to run multiple deployment of those every day? Because it will basically, it's a new deployment, so it takes the full 6 hour it takes to do. I mean, I think it's even more because we do pre before, right? So we do pre, and then after validating on pre, we do the full rollout on all the environments.
Yeah, probably not. I think I mean, even daily, maybe too much. It might be a couple of times a week, maybe. I think it's all quite manual, even to get to the MR stage. So I'll be quite surprised if we get to daily.
No, because my underlying question is more about, I do understand if a developer is adding a new configuration in one of the services and they need the new version of the charts to test it, to run it. So it makes perfect sense, right? So I would expect having call it a runbook or something, a process where they can say, we need this version of the chart because we are rolling out this feature and we want to make sure it works in time for the release and everything, right? So it makes perfect sense. But other than that, I mean, unless we want to take, and I don't think we want to take the risk to bundle it with a regular auto-deploy package, which means that it's like Omnibus, right? You get the risk of Omnibus, you get the risk of CNG, the risk of Helm charts, and the risk of the code changes all together. And today, Helm chart is the only thing that we don't take that risk for. Because it was less stable when we started doing all of this, was very new and things like that. So yeah, I don't know how, I do understand why I don't know if it makes sense to do much more often than what we're doing, unless there's a specific need.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think at the moment it's a bit of an unknown. It would definitely be interesting to see this go a bit more frequently and to see, like, do we have enough changes coming in and what sort of problems are we seeing? Because, I mean, if we could get it into the auto deploy, that it would be lovely to get rid of quite a manual process, right? But I think if we're finding stuff on those manual diffs, then we'd need to resolve that somehow.
I don't think we can actually get it to auto deploy.
We removed
Easily.
It wasn't to, it never worked because the amount of changes was breaking every single build.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna break things.
And also the way charts are released was so convoluted that we had to design a completely different way of running that build to have an auto deploy equivalent and then we never used, basically, because it was just creating outages over outages.
Right. Yeah.
May I have a very naive question, but do we make the change to the chart like often, like weekly? Is there any reason we make some changes there every week?
I think actually distribution is the team responsible for these changes. And I think it's like, I don't know like how often they actually adapt or change the charts, but like we pull the changes weekly and then we merge it.
When you say they, who are they?
Distribution team.
Okay, yeah.
And is that the distinction that they publish a GitLab chart, but we have, you know, config as code, and we only merge the changes to what will be deployed as gitlab.com every week? But what we're discussing is if we could merge those changes more frequently.
Yeah.
Well, I think that one of the problem there is that we are using very thin section of the charts. So charts are designed to give you a full installation. We're not what we are doing. So we are injecting a lot of configuration and things like that to disable almost everything, and just say I want you to deploy Sidekick only in this cluster, assuming that there are other 3 Sidekick clusters somewhere else, which is not what charts is designed for as a basic use case, right? So
it's not a good validation.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Yeah, basically we could do Helm apply, but this is generating for. I mean, it's moving the configuration along those things and making sure that everything is configured in the same way. But it is not a real validation of our charts still able to give you a deployable GitLab instance. And so we do update to take new changes, upgrades, and new configuration options and things like that. And as well as we run the release process so that when we release a new version of GitLab, there could be a chart version that is matching that and has the, I think it gets out with the default GitLab versions into it. I think there's always been a changes, and so no 2 different version of the charts had no changes other than bumping GitLab version in itself. But I think this is one of the things that happens during the release. And say we released GitLab version this, it's time to release the chart, and there is a CI thing that bakes these things together and makes a new version of the chart as well.
Yeah, it's probably good feedback to go to them with, then saying why more frequently, because if it's to validate that this stuff works in production, we don't necessarily do it in a way that they might expect that validation to occur.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Very helpful. Thanks, everyone. Does anyone have anything else they want to discuss? I just want to make a quick nudge reminder for you, Myra, as DRI of the Epic to adjust for the monthly release date change. as we're getting quite close to the end of that epic, start having a think about what sort of demo you want to either do for this group or do in a demo and bring to this group so that we can share some knowledge on what's coming up for those things. Cool. Thanks very much. Great. If there's nothing else, then release managers, over to you.
All right, I can start sharing my screen. So metrics, let's go to metrics first. Last week, I wouldn't say we had like very bad week, but I think the week wasn't very smooth because we had a lot of deployment blockers, we had a lot of incidents, and a couple of times we had to pick fixes, like super hot fixes to auto deploy. So this one and this one. I don't remember which one exactly I saw, but definitely the one that we had, like the one that I saw was I don't remember what was that actually. Things flies very fast. Yeah. So and now it's getting back to normal. We are kind of, it's the first day. Today was also not very smooth, I would say, because we had smoke tests failing a lot. And so basically the failed smoke test was merged to the master today. And we had to skip multiple versions to actually promote this this smoke test to fix for the smoke test to production. Then what else? Yeah, as the result of this a little bit lower cadence of deployments and the deployment frequency comparing to last couple of weeks. But if you compare it to the, you know, to the June, it's better than it was a few months ago. But if you're comparing this to the August, it's a little bit lower, but not critically, I would say. So lead time to change, it dropped down, but here we had a little spike, I think. Not sure what was the reason for that. Still have hard time to interpret this this graph. In terms of deployment blockers, so the last week we had 9 deployment blockers, which is more or less, yeah, it's not that bad actually. So if you compare it to all the other weeks, but definitely not like extremely smooth. And the total amount of hours we lost it was like 32 hours, which is more than last week. Some of the blockers was due to the failing test. Some of them was due to incidents, and I don't recall any serious production incident last week, but there are definitely things that actually either blocking deployment or kind of postponing the deployment. So if, for example, if we have something wrong with PDM, so it's like theoretically it's not blocking the deployment, but it's kind of rather better way to make it working. Yeah, that's it. Today we had a problem with with opt clusters. So basically, runners was not ready, so we didn't have any active runner in the queue, and that's due to the maintenance work reliability team did on those workers, and they just disabled the runner coordinator, and that was fixed very quickly. We had production blocker today, like deployment blocker today, but it was not super critical. So only for a couple of hours, we were not able to promote. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Can I try to give a little interpretation to the lead time for changes? Because I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at this every week, and if we don't understand what you're looking at, we should try to do better. So if you don't mind, I can share my screen
Yeah,
so
sure.
that
Absolutely, yes.
I move over my points here. So let me see. Okay. So first of all, what are we looking at? So this graph is showing the number of days or hours that are changed, that got merged into master, took to get deployed to production. Okay, so the lower the better. Cool. So before we get into what we are seeing here, what we would like to see that is normal is kind of this behavior here, right? So you want to see this hook. I mean, you don't even want to see the hook. You just want to see something that is higher on Monday because you had the weekend, and then the day after. So it's in one data point every 24 hours. Okay, so the day after, it must be below the 1 day threshold, which means that you were able to process every single merge request in the past 24 hours. Okay, so it's normal Monday to have spikes because you have potentially Friday evening, night, depending on your time zone. Then you have Saturday, you have Sunday, and you have up until your ability to deploy on Monday morning. So it's a lot of day, a lot of hour. So that's perfectly fine. But then let's look at this as an example. Come on, pop up. Yeah, 4 days. Okay, it's a long one. Maybe we had a family and friends day or something like this. But then the day after, it goes on 16 hours. So it's good, right? So it means that I don't know what happened, but July 11th, we in theory had a good number of deployments, or maybe just at the end of the day, we're able to process everything. And so this set us back for success for the day after, say 16 hour, 11 hour, and then this goes 1.1 days. Yeah, still good. Maybe we missed some of the late evening packages or the early morning packages the day after, and this gave us a bit more than 24-hour gap. So that's what we would like to see. Better if this is stay below as well, but it's okay. Now, if you look at this, so we had family and friends day on the 25th, if I'm not mistaken, right? So basically, this means that you go here, 26, 27, and this is the first day you came back. So it gives you almost 4 days, which, yeah, it really depends on when was the last deployment on the 24th, but it makes sense. What is not great is this here. And this is probably something that as release managers, we should try to think about. When we see something like this, where the day after we had 2.7 days, it means that something happened here, right? Either, I don't know, just give an example, we deployed very early in the morning. I don't know, right? This is interesting. Why there is something here that is taking more than 1 day. And so maybe here is where we want to and try to remember what happened.
And I think that in this particular case, we had problems with PDM, if I recall correctly. And we had to wait for AMER to be picked into auto deploy, if I'm not mistaken.
It's possible. I don't know. I was trying to see if we had some clue here in terms of number of deployments between the 28 and the 29, but I mean, 5 is a decent number of deployments. So I don't know. I think this is more something for us to try to understand. I've never done myself as well. I usually look at this week by week. So maybe it's interesting to see as release manager starting his day, because in theory, we should have already the number of the day before, right? So maybe thinking yesterday is easier than thinking 1 week ago. And so maybe trying to take a look at those numbers in the morning and say, does this number make sense for me compared to what happened yesterday? Just to try and get a bit more into the habit of understanding those numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a super suggestion, Alessio. One additional thing, I think what we see on lead time for changes is there's sort of two sides to our metrics as well. There's stuff we control. So do we have our branch schedule in a good place? And, you know, are we doing everything within our control for deployments? And then we have the things outside. So like the incidents or the unexpected stuff. And I think this is just my impression. So it's sort of a finger in the air, but my impression is that when we see the sort of like the clusters, they perhaps are the two things. So there was an incident, we will see one significant event, and it'd be good for us to make sure we understand what that significant event was. But for example, like last week, if we look at the last 3 days, we can see things trending down. So possibly we had a slightly healthier end to our week. Like, was the stuff within our control at the beginning of the week, or was it all incidents and external? So I think those are the sort of the two questions which are worth asking, because all of these things, actually, all of these metrics we gather with what can we do to improve? So do we need to be going to quality, for example, which is on my to-do list, as to why are the tests so much flakier over the last few weeks compared to previously? What changed? Or are we seeing a pattern that like the last 3 CRs caused us some lag? Or, you know, that's really what we're looking into these metrics for, is what needs to be optimized in order for us to have healthier deployments.
Yeah, and I liked Ruben's demo of the without the kind of weekends and family and friends days taken into account, because that was just a different view to help you think about, well, you know, what's caused that problem, or if there's anything irregular that's happened, or does it look generally on track if you take out some of those non-working days stuff as a view to use in combination with the other one.
Well, I agree that we have a lot of like different priorities now, but I think I already mentioned that we kind of dropped this observability work in the middle, and I would I totally agree with Emi that we need to understand these things better in order to make improvements, but in order to understand things better, we need to have better observability, and we invest a lot of time and effort in the first quarter, and then we kind of switch the priorities. And I'm really thinking that at some point we need to come back and finish this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Do we already have an epic with all the outstanding issues on it?
I do believe so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Cool.
I can find it, and
yeah, it'd be good for us just to check, because we do kind of have a bit of a sort of backlog of epics that we try and pick up. But yeah, I totally agree. I think these are good things to raise as we discuss OKRs and things like that. That, you know, we should look at completing things.
May I ask one question? So yeah, it's really interesting to hear what Alessio said about. So from that, I understand that we expect 2 things, right? The first one is there's always peak after, of course, after weekend or holiday and so on, right? And secondly, that peak should only last for 1 day, right? Because we should merge everything, and then after that, everything become normal for the whole week, right? I mean, I see that is the graph from GitLab. I don't know anything about that, so don't know what can we do about that. But can we, I mean, do some aggregation on Grafana or something to have, I mean, a better view? For example, like moving average for the last week, or like find the lowest value for the last 2 days, things like that, right? So we can easily see when something wrong happened or something we need to fix. Not okay, try to and I mean, yeah, now it's harder to see, right? Because okay, just go up and down. Everything seemed to be, I don't know, life the same for me at least. Yeah.
That was actually the whole OKR story on the first quarter. So, and we finalized some parts of this, like of this observability, but since we were thrown into the different priorities, we had to kind of, we did what we were able to do during the whole quarter, but like usually those kind of epics, they are spread into multiple quarters. So, and in the next quarter, we had absolutely different story. So that's exactly what happened with the last quarter, where we worked on, like a traffic shifting and service mesh and all these things. And then suddenly we were like pivoted to the to the completely different story as well. So I see the little trend here, honestly. But I don't like to leave things not finished.
I wonder if an AppDeck score could be useful in this situation. So for example, the percentage of MRs that were deployed within 12 hours. So we have the metrics for that. If it is useful, we could add it to a panel somewhere, to a dashboard somewhere.
Can
So
I
this
suggest
was
we
the
put
old
these
deployment.
issues and epics, because I think this stuff is all valuable. Is it more valuable than changing a release date ready for the 16.6, Martin? It probably isn't. And I think we're dedicated as well, right? So I think this stuff is valuable, but let's not, like, I think Vladimir, to your kind of point, like, I think this is where those OKR discussions are so valuable, right? Because that's the point where we need to all agree, like, this is the right direction. But I think let's be careful we don't now have too many regrets about decisions we made and derail this quarter's OKRs. So let's get the ideas down, let's get the issues, and let's prioritize them as a group. But like Ruben, for you right now, I'd say like, no, let's not add anything on the side. Sorry, Alessio, I cut you off.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is what we started when we were talking about the deployment SLO. We had two options. One was starting with AppDex on MR to production. The other one was taking at the end-to-end from package creation to package deployment. Mm-hmm. We choose the second one, not the wise choice in long term, because we realized that those numbers are so huge compared to it takes a lot of time, right? So because it takes in every environment to account, so it's really hard to figure out where the problems are, because it's a big thing. But yeah, just to give you context, we thought about using SLO for this, when then we never completed that work on number, or let's say on lead lead time for changes or things like that.
Cool. Okay, so Ruben, can I leave you with the action to see if we have an epic, consider if there has the issues for what we want to do to if we had spent another quarter on the metrics, that's the work that, like, you don't have to create anything new, just see if we have stuff already in existence.
Sure, I can do that.
Great.
Should I can post if I find it, I can post the epic on the Slack channel. Delivery.
Yeah, that would be super. Yeah, great. Thanks. Great. Is there any other discussion topic we should go through? No, I'll stop the recording.